Just a few days ago, we tested this 26,700 level, and it actually held. So I think that's a positive. You want to see that hold. You don't want to see a break of that consolidation pattern. So I guess for me, it's looking at this and saying, okay, guys, on the upside potential, I actually am leaning towards this, maybe making another move up here to the 30,000 level. In addition, I think we have to look at the 30,000 as being a very psychologically important level for the market, right? Think about the even number, think about where this was back in 2021.
Hi, I'm Crypto Positive. If you like this video, please leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. It's very important to the channel and gives me motivation to make more videos about crypto for you. And now let's go to the video.
When the market collapsed in between the two bull market moves, and this is all around that 30,000 level.
Would you say that Bitcoin in 3 months is higher, or Bitcoin on 3 months is lower?
I would take lower. If you ask me where Bitcoin is in 2 years, I'd go long right now and I'd hold, right? So that's not an issue. I'm a huge long-term bull fan of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies in general. But the bottom line is that you haven't broken, right? So I'm someone who's like, show me the money, show me the levels, right? And the bottom line is if you look at this chart, we're right up against this level. So as much as my heart wants to say, okay, Bitcoin race higher, as long as my gut says, oh, I hope it does, the charts are the ultimate arbiter of what I do, right? And right now we're still into resistance. So until we prove that we can break resistance, I can't turn bullish, right? It's all about probabilities. Probabilities are everything. And right now we're still into resistance. So basically, once we get above 30,000 and we close above 30,000, I'm waiting for a couple days to make sure that it stays there. And then my thesis says, okay, now the bottom has been proven that it is in on Bitcoin.
Are you one of the believers that the world is going to start moving away from the dollar, that there's a real risk that the dollar is not going to be king anymore?
Yeah, so for years I've said that China wants to be the reserve currency of the world, and I think this is just one step in that direction. The biggest thing for me is that type of movement is going to take years to happen. So it is starting. You're absolutely right. It is starting 100%, but it's just going to take a while for it to actually gain traction. So this is, again, it's another reason to own gold. It's another reason to own Bitcoin on the long term. If you have that long-term outlook, then this is where you want to be. Absolutely. Bottom line is this, it's just an alternative. It's one more way to protect yourself. So, I'm a big believer in diversification. I know you are too, right? You never put all your eggs in one basket. That's how we get in trouble. So again, you have some Bitcoin for the long term. You have a little gold for the long term. If you think about it, Bitcoin is still controllable by governments, and that's my biggest concern, right? So again, if I have my money in Coinbase and the government comes in and shuts down Coinbase and locks it down, how do I get my Bitcoin out, right? There are other ways, obviously, but with gold, if I have a physical piece of gold in my hand, I can go anywhere in the world with that gold and I can do what I got to do.
Before we get back to the video, I want to tell you that you can get a free $100 bonus from iTrust Capital by clicking the link in the description right now. Now let's get back to the video.
So again, I think you have to just look at it and diversify across the board. Gold's chart has a short-term breakout. It's still headed for double top here. I think, again, you're going to see gold well above 2,100 by year end, maybe even 2,300.
You also told me that Bitcoin, you think, will be down in 3 months and gold will be up in 3 months. So yeah. How do you reconcile that?
So for me, it's more of looking at the equity markets. And I think the next sell in Bitcoin will come from issues like economic recession in the US, where we see the stock market collapse substantially, right? And so you're going to see another 25% down in the S&P 500, let's say in the second half of 2023. And that will just panic people into selling. Unfortunately, you're going to get this bleed through into other risk assets where Bitcoin also sells off when that does happen. And again, remember, you have margin, right? So people that are invested in stocks, they're going to get margin calls. They're going to say, oh, well, I don't want to sell my stocks and take that loss, so let me sell a little Bitcoin and bring that money into the stock portfolio. I think, honestly, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see kind of a secondary. It's not going to be Bitcoin related. It's not like Bitcoin has an issue. It's going to be more of a panic in the overall equity markets that will bleed into crypto. If you look at past bull markets, and I know if you've been around a long time like me, you've seen real estate bubbles and crashes, you've seen bond market bubbles and crashes, and you've seen the financial crises and so forth. So .com, I still can't recall the last time I saw a real bear market bottom where bullishness came back this fast as it has in crypto. And that's concerning to me. They always say you got to flush out the weak hands. And I don't really believe that crypto really ever flushed out the weak hands when it was down in the 15.7-ish range. So that's a concern to me. I also think that, if you look at interest rates where they are, the Fed has just said in their last meeting, hey, we're leaving them here. We may not hike them more, which I don't think they will do much, but we're not going to lower them for a significant amount of time. That's going to be very hard for a risk asset like Bitcoin to deal with. And then you also have a scenario where you're going to get the stock market, in my opinion, to realize we're going into a recession. It's got to price that in, which probably means 20-25% downside in the S&P. How does Bitcoin react to that? And I got to believe that there's bleed over and selling pressure there as well. So if we were to establish ourselves above 30,000 here and hold there for a week, then you might convince me that the lows are in. But as of now, we're not above there. So I'm still in the camp that there's still a bear market here. We might go lower.
But we saw what happened in 2020. All risk assets were liquidated.
That's right. That's right. And that happened in, I mean, almost every situation, right? 2018, when the markets collapsed, risk assets fell as well across the board. And you basically go back to any point. When there's panic in any market, it tends to bleed over because people get panicked overall.
This entire cycle, they've been pricing in the Fed pivot and rate cuts pretty much the whole time on all these bounces, and it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing to see the disparity where the market is being like, no, we will not accept what the Federal Reserve is saying. Part of that, honestly, is a loss of confidence in the Fed, right? I mean, the Fed has said this before, and then they've pivoted very quickly. The only thing I would like to point out about that is that in the past, when they've kind of changed their mind, like 2018, great example, they were hiking rates, market dropped by 20% in something like 6 weeks, and then they reversed and actually started cutting rates. But that was a different time because inflation was 2% or under. And that's the kicker here, is that how much pain is the Fed going to let the economy have as long as inflation's above that 2%? I do think there's a pivot point. I just don't think we're going to get to that point yet this year where the Fed is willing to cut. And we know the banks, I mean, the banks have tapped the window at the Fed for billions and billions of dollars. We've seen the balance sheet of the Fed soar again. Again, a lot of that's to protect the banks in the near term. But the Fed will make sure, in my opinion, the Fed's not going to let inflation go up. And part of this is a mentality of the Fed, right? So the Fed realizes, and I think politically this has been pushed on them as well, which is rightly done, is that inflation hurts middle income and lower income. When you have, free money, a lot of the rich get richer, right? So the question is which one is your greater evil? And when you're talking about middle and lower income, then it's obviously inflation is the greater evil than a market decline of 20 or 30%. Yeah, I've seen so many posts on Twitter about oh, here.
Ожидание вокзала. Стою и смотрю куда-то в сторону перрона.